This is Tim Albright with an AVNation special, taking a look at ecosystems, specifically the Sony ecosystem. And with me to talk about it is Kianna Pompa. Welcome, ma'am.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Good to see you. We've got a couple things here. First of all, when we started talking about this program, and the term ecosystem came up, before we even move on from that, when Sony says ecosystem, what exactly do you guys mean?
So what I mean by ecosystem is basically different products, technologies, and services that are designed to work together seamlessly, where we can deliver a complete end-to-end experience for our customers. So it's not just about individual devices like a camera or a display, but how those devices connect, integrate, and enhance each other.
So when you take a look at that definition, then how do you tie all of these various products together? How do you tie all these various workflows together?
I think there's so many ways to look at it. I think if we start off internally, I always think of the internal Sony ecosystem, and it's something very, very unique to our organization where we have the motto of like a canvas with a creator's intent. And what does that mean? So a creator can film on like a Sony Venice or an Alpha camera, then upload securely on our Sony C Media Cloud, edit on a Sony professional monitor, deliver that via, say, Sony Pictures or Sony Music Distribution, and then the audience can consume that content on, say, a Pro Bravia display or maybe even a Crystal LED or even Sony Home Audio, right? So all of that is within the Sony universe, and all of those workflows are optimized to make sure that any division that we're working in, it's going to work seamlessly. But I also think of that as like external as well, right?
Well, talk about that for a second. Yeah.
So I think for like external, I always think of like the workflows that expand our ecosystem. So thinking of like our control partners, right? So every single one of our products, we know you might not have the full end-to-end Sony solution. So we really believe on creating an experience where the end user can pick. So that goes hand in hand with working with our control partners. So integrating with like Crestron, Extron, Kramer, QSys, just to name a few. That ensures our solutions are fully compatible with the larger Internet of Things and AVO over IP. So it gives customers confidence that, again, our technology is going to work within their ecosystem as well.
And that partnership, though, is really important. Talk about, like let's pull on that thread for a second, because, you know, there was a number of folks who would say, you know, Sony makes some really great stuff, but you don't make everything, obviously. So how important are those partnerships, and how does Sony foster those relationships with your various partners?
Definitely. I think the partnerships are bigger than ever. Within our division, we have an official stance called the Bravia Alliance Group. So we have 4 members of our team that are heading that operation, where we think of it as we have a dedicated person here in North America, but then also we have a dedicated person for global outreach, and then also a big focus of that in Japan. And essentially what we do is we're very proactive. Anytime a new product launches, we ensure that we're reaching out to our control partners so that they can get their hands on the, engineering sample, so that they can ensure that we're compliant with their control system. They can develop drivers and plugins for their own system. And then again, just making sure that before we even go to market, those are available to the end user.
There are a number of other manufacturers and companies that have quoted and leverage the term ecosystem. What makes Sony's different?
What makes it different is that I think that we turn it into something that is more open source. So again, letting the customer decide. And how do we do that? So a lot of the times, probably my number one to explain it on like the Bravia side is so many people have asked me, does Sony provide their own digital signage system? And as of right now, the only way we could do it is via like a USB stick, but that's with purpose. And what I mean by that is that there's so many providers out there that people have already standardized on. So instead, what we do is we partner with over 50 different digital signage companies now, where we are a compliant player. So what does that mean? We're SOC, we're open source. So all of the stuff that you could do with a digital signage player, you can do on board our Pro Bravia display without an external set-top box needed, right? So this is, again, working with our alliance partners to ensure that we're compliant. And then on top of all this, if you do want to become a partner, we decided to do open source so that we publicly post our cloud APIs on our website. So if you do want to develop, you're more than welcome to. So even if you say, I don't want to purchase something that's already developed, I want to develop it myself as an end user, you can definitely do that. We give you like so many options. So I think
Wow.
that's the biggest thing is that it truly is open and we don't want to lock you down into only using a Sony service.
That makes sense. SoC, at least in this conversation, is system on chip, and we can have a longer conversation about that at a different time. A lot of folks would say, I don't want to put, let's say, all my eggs in one basket. Use an old school phrase, meaning they don't want to put, have everything in one manufacturer's hands. When you look at the ecosystem, because that's in essence what you're asking folks to do, how would you balance that concern with the benefits people get from going into an ecosystem?
Definitely. I think that at the end of the day, we are a hardware portion of it, and the ecosystem has to involve some type of third party. The difference here is that Sony is working hand in hand with those third parties. So we're not telling AV manager, for example, like, hey, um, we're a manufacturer. As long as I'm accepting this HDMI input, you're good. Everything else, you're on your own. On the
Yeah.
contrary, there's so many times where there's technical issues and they say, hey, Kianna, I'm having issues with this application running on my SoC. Can you help? Even though Sony didn't necessarily develop the application, because they're part of our alliance partnership, we ensure that we're working with both our development teams here on the Sony side and the third party side as well. And that goes hand in hand even with our control partners. If someone reaches out to us and says they're having trouble controlling their Crystal LED using Crestron, like, can you please advise? We're always able and willing to jump in, especially with those alliance partners, even if it's not our application. We just take it that extra mile. So all in all, I think that the ecosystem is never going to be only Sony, but I think the beautiful thing is that it's the customer's choice, and then you're backed up with like the Sony service and support.
That actually is really huge because, again, 100 years ago when I was a tech manager, there was nothing more frustrating than calling one manufacturer and having them point the finger at the other one, and then
Exactly.
calling the other one and having them point the finger back, and then you're
I
stuck in
know.
this a horrible circle. It is really, really frustrating. One thing I like is I like examples. I like case studies and stuff like that. Do you have an example of a client of a company who migrated to the Sony ecosystem or expanded the ecosystem and some of the benefits they got coming out of that?
Definitely. And again, I'm going to use a ProBravi example, just being a
Yeah, yeah.
ProBravi product manager. I have so many cases on this. So we have so many universities that have decided to switch and standardize to Sony, Sony ProBravi displays specifically. And I think the biggest tell that I get from them is reliability. And
Okay.
so that decreased their ticketing system by almost 80%. So once they install, it's like a workhorse. Everything works as it is expected. And then also failure rates. Failure rates are completely down, and I would be a testament to say that most of the failures that I get reported into my ProBravia technical support team is basically damage during shipment, not
Oh,
necessarily a display failure. So that's really, really good, right?
yeah.
So it makes me very proud to support a product like that. But then on top of this, with the latest launch of our device management platform, it helps them be proactive. So if a display goes down, they get automatic alerts that the display is off the network. They can get screenshots so they could troubleshoot remotely. So all of that feature-rich technology that's built into our display has helped manage all of the complexity that they have had in the past.
Well, speaking of managing, what are some of the ways that doing an ecosystem, going to an ecosystem like this, helps IT managers, helps AV managers manage classrooms, manage the facilities, and manage the AV systems in those facilities?
I think at the higher level, like I mentioned earlier, we've already worked with control partners. So, say if you're a customer that's like working with Crestron or QSys Cloud, we're already compliant with that. So, if you're using, say, our projectors, our cameras, our displays, Crystal LED, all of those are compliant and can serve in that one single ecosystem of control. And then if I take it down to a specific device level, like again, my ProBravia display, I can give you a concrete example with device provisioning tool. So at the integrator level, if you contract an integrator to install these products for you, what you could do is they have access to device provisioning that ensures that every single device is set up correctly. Before we had this product launch, we would get a lot of support calls that says, "Hey, Kianna, like my display's off after 4 hours. We need it to run 24/7." Now our displays are 24/7 rated, and you can definitely do that. But because of our Energy Star compliance, we do have an eco setting. And a lot of the
Hmm.
times when integrators or installers go in and commission the display, sometimes settings are missed. We're not perfect, right? So this is the easiest way to ensure that your display is configured and is going to work as expected is using the device provisioning tool. So what does that mean? What we could do is send a profile to the display. So say run 24/7, start on HDMI 1, and then maybe even do a power schedule, for example. All of that can be pre-configured. And then once the display hits the network, we can provision it using zero touch provisioning. So all you need is your mobile device, which acts as a QR scanner, and it basically will implement all of those settings directly to your display. So
Oh,
again,
wow.
we talked about reducing those technical support calls. This will help ensure that, and then also saving so much time at the install level for the integrator because you're only doing it one time and they're not using the IR remote to configure each step.
Yes, because that takes a second.
Exactly.
As someone who has done that once or twice.
Exactly.
Talk for a second about what Sony can do. Assets, right? That or help that Sony has in helping the faculty, helping staff to adopt Sony products, adopt the Sony ecosystem, because there is resistance sometimes to change, especially in higher education, especially in longer tenured faculty. I'm not going to throw any stones at some of my friends that are long tenured faculty, but there are some times that change is difficult and hard. But what can Sony do to help the IT manager, the AV folks, with the adoption, whether that is faculty in higher education or just staff in general at a Fortune 500 company?
I know that we're all scared of change, so I think that the biggest thing that you have to prove to a user is reliability, so that if you do this and you press this button, it will work every single time. So I think that we start with building confidence and reliability. But internally within Sony, we also create so many different training programs, lunch and learns. Really, we will go as far as you'll let us, meaning we could do virtual trainings, right? We can support you virtually. We have sales support engineers that cover basically all of North America. And if we have a large installation and you want someone on site to help onboard, to help train, again, like I said, lunch and learns earlier, where you're directly on site, we can help arrange that. We even have a demo pool program. So if you want to demo any of our products before purchasing, we have 2 to 3 week loan periods and we can send you one. And then again, we can combine that with the support of a sales support engineer. And if you need something even higher than that, we have our product management tier. So it starts with sales, then sales support engineer, then product management that can get involved as well if you need higher level integration or if you have feature requests. You're already an existing customer and you need X to for the product to function, that's where product management comes in, really.
Okay.
So we also do Tech Tuesdays every other Tuesday. I think we're down to monthly Tech Tuesdays.
Okay.
But we always talk about our product during those periods as well. So many times that you can get education on the Sony side.
You mentioned North America. One of the things that's interesting is I just came back from IBC, which is an international broadcast show. Sony was there. I got to hang out with those folks. And in talking with a number of clients and end users there, I got to hang out with the AV user group, and there was a couple of Fortune 100 companies that were at IBC talking about standardization globally, right? They are either headquarters in the U.S., there was a couple that were headquartered in Paris, a couple that were headquartered in Asia Pac, and regardless of where their conference room is, regardless of where their facility is, they want folks to be able to walk in and have the exact same experience globally, right? Standardization and support that way. How does an ecosystem help with this desire and this drive especially on the corporate level, to have a standardized experience around the globe?
I definitely believe that this is one of our number one questions and is very top of mind for our organization. We actually just recently launched our Global AV Solutions website. So you can go to our website, can post it for you so that your users have access to it, where you can go and search what devices are selling based on country. So,
Okay.
for example, again, going back to Pro Bravia, if you're looking for a BZ40L series, where do we sell that and which market? And we have so many enterprise customers that have asked us for global solutions. So we have been pushing our headquarters to be aligned globally. So the biggest way that we can do that is getting in contact with your designated account manager so that they can
Okay.
act as your representative. And then we can basically work with you to ensure that the devices that you're purchasing here in the US, you can purchase in other countries. And that goes hand in hand with our partnerships, right? So our making sure that our control partners, they also offer global solutions, digital signage partners. Thankfully, they're from the cloud, so a lot of them will work globally.
Yep.
So it's really going to be a hand-holding process in a way, depending on what you're looking at in specific products. But again, starting at the most basic level with our account managers that will help be the liaison and quarterback all that communication across all the different regions that Sony covers.
Let me ask a question here, because if somebody runs into a situation, and you mentioned start with the account manager, so I'm sure depending on the situation, but if you can't get X in maybe one of your countries, but you can get Y, and there's an equivalency there, is that what the account manager kind of can walk you through? Is like, okay, you won't have the exact model number, but you'll have something that's similar.
Definitely, like I say, that the account manager is a quarterback. So, say for example, you can't get a BZ40L series in India. uh, it's not true, but say India, but you can
Yeah.
get an easy 20L series, right? They can bring me on with that customer and I can basically explain what the difference is from an easy 20L versus a BZ40L and to see if the device is going to work in their installation or if we have to recommend another product that might be a better fit depending on their needs. So I think that's where we work hand in hand is that the account manager is the liaison to bring in any other Sony member that would be able to support that account.
Without making me sign something and swearing me to secrecy, what is next for the ecosystem?
There's so much. Of course, there's always things I wish I could talk about, but we
Yep.
require an NDA. So
Things that you can talk about, Kiana.
things that I can that I can talk about. I think for me, it's going to be deeper, like a deeper software and API integration. Really,
Yeah.
what I truly believe is this open AV cloud, right? So
Okay.
expanding our APIs, but creating some type of consistency with our control partners. I feel like right now it's very much where everyone programs based on what's convenient for them or what ecosystem they're already using. So it would be very, very helpful in the future if we could standardize what we're using. And we are pushing towards that. So we're pushing towards more of a REST API
Okay.
conversion. And we're hoping to launch that very, very soon. And then again, making those feature sets richer, pulling in analytics, helping with the use of AI, for example. So being proactive. If we know that, like, say your laser light source was being used for X amount of hours, when will we start needing to replace these types of devices? If we are causing stress over the network, what can we do? So the
Yeah.
help of AI and APIs, I think that will be really our go-to. And I think I'm going to see a lot more investment in cloud and remote management. As of right now, we only support cloud management with our Pro Bravia displays, but it has been highly requested that we support that with all of our full device lineup. So we're hoping to make enhancements on that. And then, of course, something that's very a big passion of mine is sustainability and efficiency. So, how do we make our devices more efficient, more sustainable, create opportunities for upgrades instead of replacements, and increasing that uh, longevity of our product.
Kianna, if you had 60 seconds to convince an IT or an AV manager to go with Sony over anybody else, what would you say?
60 seconds is too little. I feel like I was trying to convince you this whole time. I think if I really bring down to it, Sony is really just a premium quality solution. So you really have peace of mind that if you use Sony as your go-to manufacturer, it's a partner you can trust. So it combines like our cameras, our direct view LED, all of the API integrations I mentioned, our full ecosystem of partners, and then of course, picture quality. You're going to have a lot of flexibility with any product that you choose on our side. And I would say service and support. It's really the people that are going to help you every step of the way, from our account managers, our sales support engineers. Our technical support is still local. They're based out of New Jersey, and then we have another team member out in Canada supporting that area as well. So it's really a service like no other. And you know that your devices and your solutions are going to be scalable as well.
All right, that'll do it. Kianna Pompa from Sony. How do people connect with you or Sony?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I have Kianna Pompa, or at kianna.pompa@sony.com. And for more information on our products, you can also visit pro.sony.
All right, very good. Kianna Pompa from Sony. For us, for AVNation, go by our website, avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv, and you'll find more programs like this and a host of others. All that and more at avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
This is AV.
This
is AV Nation.
This is AV Nation.